So, yeah. The
Sorry,
so
sorry.
Americans are
Technical
Did you have
difficulties.
another
Stream,
technical difficulty?
stream
Oh, more
restarted. Yeah.
technical difficulties.
Yep.
Fun.
Yep. There it is. There's the sound alerts message.
I get
But
to
yeah,
continue?
like you have to walk through an 8-lane road. We can just walk on the sidewalk because we have like sidewalks through the way to the other suburb, and from there we can go to a supermarket and to a
Yeah.
small shopping center.
I mean, I can actually get there all on sidewalks, but that's just because I don't have to walk along said 8-lane road. I just have to cross it. Which, yeah, even though it's not very far, usually you just drive there because it's just easier and honestly safer. The other thing is not only is it you can't go anywhere without driving, basically, and there's basically no public transit. The public transit that does exist in the United States is terrible. Not just in that it's doesn't go like where you want it to go, but just the actual like infrastructure that's there is bad. Like American buses are bad. The bus itself, because American buses are extremely bouncy and noisy.
Yeah, the suspension must suck.
They are not fun to ride. Yeah, the buses suck. If it's something that's like higher order than a bus, like a tram or a streetcar or something, it's generally pretty nice. It's fairly okay. But the buses that most people do suck. The other thing is due to how America is suburbanized, it was basically only the white people who originally moved into the suburbs,
No toy.
which meant that the white people became the car dependent, while the poor people, who were generally the people who weren't the white people, continued to use public transit in the inner cities where they were still built for it, until they
Yeah.
bulldozed them to build interstates through. Which meant that the public transport became associated with, one, minorities, and two, poor people. Which means in the large portion of the United States, public transport is seen as a form of social welfare.
A form of what?
Of welfare.
Huh.
Meaning, a lot of Americans are like, I don't want to ride the bus. The bus is for poor people.
If only. It's just convenient.
It is convenient. However, the thing is,
Hold on, give me a moment.
if Well, while Jimmy's up or something, hello chat. Jimmy's currently contending with a dog. We are here in the Roomba of thought. As opposed to a train of thought, it goes in a straight line until it encounters something and bounces off. We've actually managed to stay on topic surprisingly well. We're talking about some differences between the U.S. and Europe, which has basically descended into me ranting about American public transit being terrible, but c'est la vie.
Why does it have to go? Does it have to go boating?
Hmm?
I have to go vote.
What?
You heard me right. I have to go voting.
Bruh. Well, I guess the Roomba's returning to its charging dock early today.
No, you can. I mean, one day I wanted to do something special. Right? No, we couldn't go in the morning.
Bruh. Well, join us this time next week for Roomba of Thought,
I
episode
mean,
2, where
can you
we
like?
talk
I'm gonna
about
be
something
gone for
different
like.
because we cannot stay on topic.
I mean, like, I'm gonna be gone for like 10, 15 minutes tops. So
Oh, if
I
it's
can.
10 15 minutes top, then we can just.
Yeah, you can distract them in the meantime.
Alright. One Roomba of Thought. Drag the little Jimmy avatar off the screen, and I'll try and keep the chat entertained for like 15 minutes.
You can just make him vanish. Alright.
And then there was
Ready?
one. The Roomba is mine. Room. Oh no. Oh no. Alright, chat. It's just me, I guess. Because Jimmy's parents have decided to. Yes, boat. I don't know why, but they've decided boat. Huh. Let's see. What could we talk about? That's just me talking to chat. Hold on. We're gonna ping some Discord friends to see if we can fill chat a bit. Twitch.tv/ Jimmy-The-Hedgehog. Hold on, let me just copy paste the Twitch thing so I don't misspell it. That seems clever. Anyway. Hello, the people of chat. Is there people in chat right now? I don't actually know if there's people in chat. I think there were earlier. I don't know if they're still here. Anyway. Yes. Jimmy's off doing boat stuff. For some reason. I don't know why. Screw it. Let's talk about boat. Let's talk about boats, I guess. I don't know. The room was bouncing on the boats. What can I talk about that's boat? I suppose there's boat-related stuff. No, the Spanish-American War stuff. I should talk with while Jimmy's here, so we can have both the American and the Spanish talking about it. Please, chat. I'm relying on someone to bounce off of. The Twitch chat I have open on the other screen is just pulled up ads. Ad 1 of 4. What is going on? Why? Why is it running 4 ads? Back to back. Twitch, please. Bezos. Anyway. Oh, that's something we can talk about. Fucking Jeff Bezos and or Elon Musk. The rich assholes that they are. Instead of both talk about rockets, talk about their rocket ships, their spaceship programs. Elon Musk with SpaceX and Jeff Bezos with Blue Origin? I don't know. I don't care. I just know Jeff Bezos has decided that his rocket ships need to look particularly phallic, and Elon Musk is just an idiot. Because if you weren't aware, recently, SpaceX did a big rocket launch where they launched a big rocket, blah blah blah. And they demolished their launch pad in the process. Just completely ruined it. Now, the reason they did this is because they were idiots. Because the thing is, how a rocket works is you burn things, shoot hot gas out the bottom, rocket go up, Newton's whatever law of physics, equal opposite reaction. I think that's the third law. I don't know. The fact is, all that gas you shoot out the bottom has to go somewhere. And given that it's going out the bottom with enough force to send your rocket into orbit, has a lot of energy. And that's why NASA, basically every space agency ever, has constructed a diversion tunnel that diverts all the exhaust gases down this tunnel and just vents it out the side, basically. I also tend to put some water in there to absorb the heat and turn to steam. Shoot out the side. It's a diverted tunnel. SpaceX decided they didn't need to do this and just had a flat launch pad. Which meant when the gases went down and hit the floor, they just tore it to pieces and sent debris flying and demolished at least one car with flying debris. Because apparently, learning from the people who have been doing this for half a century and put people on the fucking moon is too much effort for freaking apartheid South Africa billionaire Elon Musk. Because, yeah, Elon Musk has his self-made billionaire image. Just ignore the large amounts of generational wealth his family obtained by owning an emerald mine in apartheid South Africa. Which, if you're not familiar with what that is, if you're familiar with how racist America was, at least double it. And you've got apartheid South Africa. And it also lasted like 20 years longer. Back when it was like, oh yes, the government itself was officially racist. Yeah. Yeah. That's just how it was. And Elon Musk's family got rich off it because self-made. Let's go. It's definitely a self-made billionaire. Other things that are tangentially related, we're bouncing the Roomba around real big because I don't have someone to bounce off this conversation with. It's a one-man podcast right now because Jimmy's on a boat. I don't even know if I'm talking to anyone, I'm gonna be honest. If there's anyone in chat, please put something in chat, please. I'm not in a padded cell, guys. I'm not in a padded cell, I'm fine. I'm mentally sane. Oh my god. Let's talk about Eastern Europe. Let's talk about Ukraine. Because if you're not aware, Ukraine's continuing to be incredibly base. Just basically cyberbullying Russia. Because I honestly, the memes about the Russia-Ukraine war is almost as intense as the actual fighting. The meme war is almost more intense than the actual fighting. I think it was yesterday, the Ukrainian government put out like a cinematic trailer for their counteroffensive. Like, what is... This is the year 2023, and freaking countries are putting out cinematic trailers for their upcoming military operations. Like, can you imagine? Can you imagine? Freaking, like, the U.S. government putting out, like, a cinematic trailer for Desert Storm, or a cinematic trailer for the invasion of Afghanistan, or something like that. That'd be ridiculous, but Ukraine's put out a cinematic trailer for their counteroffensive. I mean, to be fair, literally everyone's expecting them to do it, so it's not like they're losing the element of surprise, but still, it just seems so weird to me. Then you had, like, earlier this week, there was the Russian Free Legion, which is a group of Russian opposition partisans who are anti-Putin, basically partisan forces, who officially without Ukrainian support, but given the way Ukraine denied their support, which I'll talk about in a moment, probably was, but they did an incursion. Which city was it? Into a border city, on the near the Russia-Ukraine border. Which city was it? Oh, I'm scrolling through Discord where I was talking about it. Where was it? Belgorod. Yeah, it was Belgorod that they did an incursion into. First of all, they met basically no resistance. Second of all, the map of the incursion, at one point, literally looked like a penis. Literally. The dildo of consequences. They basically advanced further in a single day. Then they made more progress in one day, just basically shitting on Russia's defenses than the Russian military and Wagner combined made in Bakhmut in like the past year. It's like, bruh. Also, the Polish particularly got involved in memeing on this because the partisans' entry point was border checkpoint, which was stationed by like one guy, not even wearing a helmet, doing paperwork, not paying attention. And the Polish began shitposting on this by just memeing the Google Maps reviews of this border checkpoint. The Russian partisans also just started posting where they were via Google Maps. Basically, just posting pictures in front of locations in the city saying, like, yo, I'm here. The the whole thing was just a mess. It was particularly from the Russians. The one of the defenses they had was these things called the Dragon's Teeth, which sounds really scary, but what it is literally just a whole bunch of big concrete wedges that you spread across basically a field, and it's an anti-tank barricade, basically. It's something most famously used in the Winter War by Finland, but they've been used all over. The whole thing is you like bury like more than half the thing in the ground, so you like can't move it. The ones on the border weren't buried, so the Russian Foreign Legion incursion literally just pushed them out of the way. It's like, oh my god. How do you mess up the deployment of Dragon's Teeth? That's... then again, this is coming from the faction of the military who somehow managed to run out of AKs in a post-Soviet state, so... Hello, Toasty Sandwiches saying, hi, Jimmy. If you're wondering where Jimmy is in the Roomba of Flight, Jimmy got called away to go on a boat for like 15 minutes, so I'm stuck entertaining chat all on my own. And I've descended into madness. If I had the power to change it, my little avatar would now be in a padded cell. I am Meep. I am his co-host on the Roomba of Thought. Our podcast we've decided to start. It's episode 1. The naming convention, it's like a train of thought, except unlike a train of thought, it's not on rails. Whenever we encounter something, we bounce off it and go in a random direction, because we're like a Mark 1 Roomba. Actually, that's something I can talk about. People in chat, are you familiar with Stabby the Space Roomba? Are you familiar with Stabby the Space Roomba? I'm not gonna wait for a response, but Stabby the Space Roomba was something the internet cooked up, which is basically humans in space. At some point, humans in space on the crew with all their alien friends, because it's the Federation or whatnot. Some human had the brilliant idea of taking space duct tape and a space Roomba, and space duct taping a random kitchen knife to a space cleaning robot. So it's Stabby the Space Roomba. And let me tell you, the internet fucking loves Stabby the Space Roomba. You can just, if you just like Google search Stabby the Space Roomba, Stabby the Space Roomba, you can find a bunch of like just text pages on Stabby the Space Roomba. There's a whole kinds of things, and there's images of people who've like either photoshopped or just actually made Stabby the Roombas. It is hilarious. And in the original Stabby the Space Roomba, it ends up, first of all, repelling a boarding action. And second of all, the tradition is they refer to Stabby the Space Roomba by the rank of the highest ranked person has managed to stab, which is an admiral. uh, this is the kind of shitposting I love. Stuff like that. Another good thing on the internet, completely different, but another good thing, is there's a website called Texts from Superheroes, which is basically just superheroes texting each other, and it is the best shit posting. Like if I just pull that up on my screen, which I can't put up on the actual thing because only Jimmy's allowed to do that, and he's on a boat because his family insisted he go on a boat. like there's several just on this page and page of text from superheroes stuff. It's just things like Captain America and Falcon texting each other, and then they just throw shade at Winter Soldier because we got a shit post. Or then Spider-Man being amazing, Deadpool's amazing. It's glorious. I need to close it before I get distracted just reading that. Because it is glorious comedy. So text from superheroes is good. I know dog shaming used to be really big, where it's pictures of dogs, the sign next to them, where it's like they've done something bad. And there's people have also made art of it, where it's like that, but it's Pokemon. It's like they're shaming the Pokemon who's misbehaving. You can obviously Google pictures of that. I'm struggling. I don't have someone to bounce off of. I was reliant on Jimmy being here to speak with. It feels weird talking to myself. There's a reason I'm not a streamer and Jimmy is. I can't just talk to myself. The chat's not active enough for me to like have a conversation with chat. Panic. Uh, I'm sorry, Twitch chat. I'm sorry. Substitute Jimmy is not good at being Jimmy. I'm sorry. I was like, Jimmy, please come back from your boat. Jimmy, I beg you. Jimmy, come back from your boat. Jimmy's family, release Jimmy. Let him come back from the boat. Yeah. What can I talk about that's boat related? Because I mentioned boats. Let's bounce in the direction of a boat. I don't know. Shit. Can we talk about Star Wars? I can talk about Star Wars. I can talk about a little bit of Star Trek, maybe. I don't know. I know a little bit of Warhammer. Please, someone in chat, give me something to talk about, please. I beg you. Well, that's something I could talk about. If you're not aware, there's a game called War Thunder. And currently, people are laughing at the developers. We're laughing at the developers. We're referring to the developers made a change to the in-game economy. Again, I don't play this game, but it's tangentially related to the games I do play, so I see some updates on it. And they made change to the economy, and the community rioted. I mean, full on went into revolt. And one of the things they did, and I think they're still doing it, is they review bombed it on Steam. In the Steam reviews for this game, over the course of like 3 days, the overall reviews went from mostly positive to mixed in like a day or two. They review bombed it harder than Hiroshima, okay? They just annihilated the Steam reviews to the point where on most of the advertising they've done for the game since, the developers have just not mentioned Steam. And basically, the developers are trying to be like, the community's being so unreasonable in review bombing this game. It's like, no.
Guess who's back?
Part of the reason they're revolting
Back
is,
again.
oh, Jimmy's back!
Jimmy's back.
He's back from the
Tell
boat!
friends.
Yay! Thank Arceus, Jimmy's back! I was losing my fucking mind.
What happened?
Please, Jimmy! I don't know! I didn't know what to talk about. I bounced around to like 10 different topics. I had no one to bounce off of. I was losing my mind. Thank God Jimmy's back. Thank Arceus, Jimmy's back. There's someone in chat. There's toasty sandwiches.
Jimmy, my name's Jimmy.
Jimmy's
My
chat.
name's literally Jimmy.
Yeah. There's someone named Toast. No, I meant Twitch chat.
Yeah, it's Toast.
Someone
I know
named
the
Toasty
man.
Sandwiches, shout out.
I know this guy. He's from Octo
Alright,
Stream.
Jimmy's back.
I see.
He's
Stream
returned
also
from the void.
restarted once before. Oh no! Wait, hold on. That's when it restarted.
That was before. That was before you left.
That was before I left. So woo! I went voting. Woo!
So, something I thought of that could be tangentially related to boat to talk about.
Okay, hold on. What have you been talking about?
I don't know.
Great.
I just bounced around to random shit.
Random
I went
facts.
full Roomba thought mode. The Roomba got stuck in a tiny room and was bouncing around horribly.
He got stuck in a closet.
Basically. So I thought of something that's tangentially related to boats that we could maybe talk about.
Wait, boats? When did we get to boats?
Well, because you were on a boat.
Oh, I wanted to vote. Yeah, not boat.
You
vote.
said you would vote. Oh,
Yeah,
vote! I
voting.
thought you said boat. No, you were doing.
vote,
I thought
voting,
I thought you were
voting.
doing. I thought you were doing democracy. I thought you were doing voting.
No, I was
Oh
doing
my
democracy. I was doing democracy.
Oh my god, that is very different. Okay.
Do you think I would have
But-
done this today if I knew I was going to get on a boat?
No, but
Exactly.
my thing for it is your family was like, "Yo, we're gonna go on a boat now." That's why originally I said the Roomba thought was returning to his dock because I thought that you were gonna be gone for like an hour or 3 because you were going on a boat. No, you were going to vote.
Yes,
V-
I was
V
going
instead
to
of B.
vote. Yeah.
Oh my
Yeah.
god.
Brilliant.
Oh my
Absolutely
god.
Brilliant. The gold mine. Oh my god. Something I was thinking about. I was thinking about having to create another YouTube channel for this. Specifically for this. Since it's 2-hour recordings, approximately, more or less.
Hold on until this actually gains some traction or something. Or you could do that. That's up to you.
It was more for like,
You're the
so
guy
we don't
who-
have like the Roomba of
That's
Thought
it.
and the normal bots together. I could create a list on YouTube, I guess.
Well, that's up to you.
I could do that. Anyway,
It would probably make putting images up easier. Put
Yeah.
like a little projector screen behind it. Just put up image of whatever we're talking about. Anyway, so because I mentioned votes before, the thing I thought of that's like tangentially related, that for
votes, not
the
voting.
Spaniards and the Americans speak about,
Are you talking about the main?
is the Spanish-American War.
You're talking about the main.
Blame the main on Spain. Yes. So question.
Yes.
For the Spaniard, how is that war actually taught in Spain?
I think it's just put up as a side note. Like, oh yeah, this happened. This is how we lost things to America because of the American-Spanish War.
Yeah, this is how it happened. The Americans bullied us.
Basically, move along. Moving along.
Yeah, we had more important things to do. Yeah.
Exactly.
So I'll be honest. In the history textbooks for like proper like American like primary secondary school that your average American actually gets, the Spanish-American War is also kind of a side note.
It's just kind of it just kind of exists. It happened. We lost some colonies.
It just kind of exists.
Yeah.
It's like the Maine exploded basically spontaneously. The press blamed Spain.
Because of course.
And the government's like, yeah, and then the government's like, well, the press has blamed Spain. Why not? And then we went to war with Spain. Basically, and then basically decided for no reason just to show up at the Philippines and be like, yo, this is ours now. And the U.S. Navy kicked the ever-living shit out of the Spanish Navy because at that point the Spanish Navy was
kind of shit.
It was no longer the Spanish Armada.
Yep.
The Spanish Navy was very powerful at one point. This was not that point in time.
No, we were very strong when we were the Empire of the Rising Sun. Wait,
Yeah.
is it that?
The land of the rising sun was Japan.
No, Empire, because anywhere you would go, that was a Spanish colony, you could see the sun rise.
Ah, okay. To be fair, at that point in time, the U.S. Navy was also kind of shit. If I'm being honest, the force that was led into the Philippines was not led by a battleship. It was led by a cruiser. Okay.
Okay.
It was led by the heavy cruiser Olympia, which, fun fact, the Americans still have. We still have it. It's a museum.
I assume it's stocked away as a museum.
Yeah, it is a museum. It is, I believe, the second oldest museum ship in the country.
What's the oldest one? The Maine?
No, it's not the Maine. The Maine was scrapped.
I was
the
joking.
oldest museum that we have is the USS Constitution, which is, unless I'm mistaken, it is the longest serving museum ship in the world.
America.
It also has the benefit, unlike every other museum ship the U.S. Navy the U.S. has. The Constitution is still actually owned by the Navy.
Oh.
In active commission by the Navy, which means it gets U.S. Navy budget to maintain it.
Oh. Okay. So it's not, but it's not owned by like a private contractor.
It's not owned by a private nonprofit. It is owned by the Navy. And I would like to point out the Constitution. They actually like take it out like every year. They have an event where they untie it from its berth. They put up the sails and they like sail around in the harbor, and then they come back and they park it, and they park it the other way around. They alternate which side is tied up to the point, and the reason they do it is it means that it weathers evenly.
Ah. Wait, weathers evenly?
It's done to make it means that the weather wears on the ship evenly on both sides.
Oh.
But you know, to put in perspective how old this ship is, Jimmy. The USS Constitution. It was named by President George Washington.
I mean, no doy.
It is a 18th century warship. Okay.
Yeah.
But to put in perspective, do you know if Spain has a museum ship?
I don't know. I haven't really looked into it.
Because let me tell you, America, the U.S. museum ship fleet, if it was operational,
Yeah.
would be more powerful a navy than Russia.
Hold on, let me
The
check
the
if there's anyone in Spain.
the museum ships of the U.S. Navy is the world's second largest navy. I'm pretty sure, or maybe
No,
third.
there's no actual like boat museum, but there's a bunch of boat related museums.
Okay. There's I know there's actually a fair number of countries that have like at least a museum ship. In the grand scheme of things, there's not actually that many.
Oh wait, actually, hold on. Actually, hold on. There's six. There's a
There's
submarine. There's six museum boats in Spain,
Nice.
and one of them is a
Now,
submarine.
a lot of them.
It's a
There's a
prototype
fair number of
submarine.
submarines. Fascinating. Yeah, there's a fair number of them around the world. The British have a couple. The British actually don't have that many, mainly because basically the entire Royal Navy after World War II got scrapped.
Ah.
And the reason for that is, one, Britain was broke. And two, most of the Royal Navy was obsolete. And three, basically the entire Royal Navy, the entire Royal Navy, was a very large quantity of pre-nuclear steel.
Oh.
So if you're not familiar with that, after the Manhattan Project concluded, that created,
Big bomb.
nuke go boom. Yes. So that created, people discovered that the heavy elements created by this, fairly effectively, permeated the planet. Like to the point where they can, if you were born or raised after the atomic era, they can figure that out from your skeleton.
Oh.
From the extra radioactive elements in your skeleton. Which is actually useful because carbon dating's gotten messed up.
Oh.
Because of the increased amount of carbon in the atmosphere. So that's a way they can distinguish between really, really old things and modern things that look like they're really old due to the messed up carbon dating. However, this also means that that's contaminated any steel that you forge. Which, if you're trying to make things, certain sensors and stuff, will mess up them and basically ruin their readings. Yeah. So that meant any steel forged before the atom bomb, pre-nuclear steel, suddenly became incredibly valuable because it was available in limited quantities. So the Royal Navy, a lot of countries scrapped a whole bunch of boats because that was worth a lot of money. And also, most of the world was broke after World War II.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure immediately after World War II, the United States owned like 70% of the world's gold reserves. Because the U.S. made a lot of money between the two world wars, lend-leasing shit.
Yeah, America really got like very, very, very well out of both world wars.
Yes.
And Spain was just there.
Came out of the world wars. Spain set both of them out.
Yeah,
Yes.
that's what I'm saying. Spain existed. We were just there, Ivan. We just had a civil war right before the World War II.
I'm pretty sure. Yeah, in World War I, Spain was fully neutral. in World War II, Franco stayed out of it, but I think he was kind of
He
like
sent troops to aid
he was
Angry Mustache Man.
Ax- he was Axis aligned because I'm pretty sure that was also a fascist state. But he was unlike Italy, unlike Mussolini, he was smart enough to realize his country was not in a position to engage in a significant war.
Yeah.
So he did the smart thing and didn't get involved. Meanwhile, Mussolini was many things. A wise man was apparently not one of them. I mean, Italy in World War II is this weird anomaly. Because World War II era Italy is very strange. Because Italy's biggest weakness was that it had a very weak industrial base. However, Italy was in the very, very small club of countries who had the ability to actually build their own battleships. The countries that could build their own battleships, there was only ever like 7. Okay? I can name them all because I'm an early. It's the United States,
Yeah.
Britain,
Of
France,
course.
Germany, Italy, Russia, Japan. It is 7. It is actually 7. Wow. I just kind of spitballed that, but no, it is 7. It is 7 countries. It by World War II, arguably, it had gone down to 6 because
Italy.
no, because Russia.
Oh,
Because
because Russia.
Italy during World War II completed multiple battleships.
Damn.
The Littorio class battleships, which by all accounts, if they had ever seen combat, would have probably been pretty good.
Oh.
But for context, the most significant action any of them got was Roma got bombed by the Germans and sunk.
Oh.
Yeah.
Great.
Because that was after Italy surrendered and the Italian Navy was sailing off to go be interned with the Allies, and the Germans were like, nope, and just annihilated them. Yeah, they dropped the Fritz X radio guided bomb. Whose the only kill that bomb ever got was the Roma. So Germany's wonder weapon, only thing it ever does is sink an Italian ship.
Great job.
I mean, to be fair, it did score a hit on the British battleship Warspite, which survived technically, but if you're not aware, HMS Warspite was the most decorated warship of all time. The Grand Old Lady of Jutland was the most decorated warship of all time.
Damn.
After
And
the
they
war, it was
scrapped
scrapped. Yes.
That's
Now,
unfortunate.
many people are upset about it because, you know, most decorated warship of all time. And fun fact, the only place in the world you can find a British battleship in preservation
It's not Britain.
is Japan.
I knew it!
But because I'll explain that one later. Actually, I'll explain it right now. The Japanese have a museum battleship. They have the Mikasa, which is the oldest museum battleship anywhere in the world. Which it was built in Britain because this was before Japan gained the ability to build their own battleships. There, that's all that is. It is a place I'd like to see if I ever go to Japan. But the other thing is, one, Warspite wasn't preserved because Britain was broke, and that's a lot of pre-nuclear steel. 2, Warspite basically needed to be rebuilt after the war.
Good morning, Logic. Sorry.
Morning, chat. Because the thing is, Warspite got hit by a Fritz X guided bomb. 2, Warspite survived.
Warspite? As in...
HMS Warspite. I'm gonna spell it out.
Her Majesty's ship.
Warspite.
I was like, wait,
actually,
is it a ship?
At that time, it was His Majesty. At that time, it was His Majesty's ship, but yes.
And now it would be also
Uh,
His Majesty's ship again because
Now it would be His Majesty's ship again, yes.
the Queen of England is dead, which is something we never imagined would happen.
No, and the Irish were very
Happy,
about
yes.
that. But the thing is, Warspite got hit by those bombs. And
Yeah.
Warspite did manage to return to port and be patched up.
Mhm.
I do mean patched up quite literally.
Oh God.
There was a hole through the bottom of the ship
Oh.
that they plugged with concrete. They plugged it with concrete, and Warspite got. To be fair, Warspite did move under its own power again, at like half its maximum speed.
Hmm.
It got pulled out for use at shore bombardment for D-Day. One of Warspite's turrets never worked again.
Oh.
The ship, it floated and it still had guns on it. That
Yeah.
it was not really combat worthy.
Was it,
Then
okay, hold on.
again, the bombardment.
Wasn't one of the ships that hit its targets in D-Day literally because it had like half sunk? Like they literally let water in so it could tilt the.
That was Texas. That was the battleship
Yeah.
Texas, which is in preservation. It's currently undergoing dry docking for maintenance, which it desperately needed. Technically, that wasn't D-Day because it was several days after D-Day. But yes, they flooded one of the torpedo blisters, which is the torpedo blister was a thing that was introduced in the, I think either during or just after World War I, where it was basically a big, outer shell put along the sides of the ship, basically a blister,
Mm-hmm.
which is why it's called a blister,
Yeah.
like the injury blister, where basically it's a big hollow space, basically. Sometimes they'd fill it with like something, but usually it's empty. Which the idea is when a torpedo hits it, it blows a hole in it.
Yeah.
But because it's held away from the side of the ship, it doesn't put a hole in the actual side of the ship. That's the idea. It's basically you've held out a shield like 2 feet away from the side of the ship, and you're fine.
Yeah. Okay. That makes sense.
And they filled one of those with water, causing the ship to take on a list.
Yeah.
So it's tilted over.
So basically, like adding
Then-
a ballast to the ship.
Yeah, it's basically they used it to add a whole bunch of ballast to the side of the ship. And what this did is they filled the out to sea side of the ship blister tank with water, so it lists that direction. Meaning when they point the guns the other direction towards land, they get an extra, I think it was like 3 degrees of elevation. Because these really old dreadnoughts were not designed to have their turrets elevate to 45 degrees. In part because the fire control was, at that point, was not advanced enough where they could hit things that far out. That's just a fact.
Yeah, but
The fire control, they couldn't. Yeah. Most of the U.S. battleships in World War II actually basically dedicated shore bombardment because that was the old dreadnoughts and standard type battleships where they were too slow to escort aircraft carriers.
Mm-hmm.
Unlike the related topic though, the Warspite being scrapped after the war and some people being upset. Warspite, the British get less shit for it because the British government was fucking broke. They had no money, and preserving a battleship's expensive. Preserving a battleship is one, expensive, and 2, Warspite was not in very good condition.
Yeah.
To put it mildly. The Americans though get a whole lot of shit for not preserving the aircraft carrier Enterprise.
Oh?
The aircraft
Darius,
carrier
not your kitty. Also, hi, Darius.
The aircraft carrier Enterprise was the most decorated U.S. warship of all time. And yes, it is the namesake for the Star Trek ship.
I mean, I was like, okay, that's where the name for the is it USS Enterprise?
Yes, they do use USS as the prefix in Star Trek for some reason.
Which means what does it mean?
Technically it doesn't mean anything, but it's sort of like United States ship is kind of what people have
Okay.
taken it to mean. The USS Enterprise, basically, if you want a summation of that ship's career,
Uh-huh.
take the scene in Halo 3 where it's shipmaster, we are outnumbered 3-1, then it is an even fight.
Ah, okay.
That is basically Enterprise's career.
And he was the one. Damn.
Enterprise was the one, yes. I mean, technically, the US had 2 operational carriers in the Pacific, but not at the same time. Because
Okay.
you also had Saratoga, but people forget about Saratoga because USS Saratoga missed every single significant naval battle in the Pacific Ocean.
Ah.
Because- For a variety of reasons, mostly by the name of Japanese submarine.
A
Because
submarine
the
hit
USS
it.
Saratoga torpedoed Saratoga, I think, on like 3 separate occasions.
Bruh.
I mean, it survived. It also survived the war. Saratoga was also not maintained, though you sort of can go see Saratoga. You just need a very long plane and scuba gear, because it was sunk in shallow water off Bikini Atoll.
Why was it sunk? Was it for testing or something? Because I know boats have been used for that.
Yes, it was the Bikini Atoll tests, which is where the U.S. took a whole bunch of its old boats. Like, yes, nukes.
Great idea, guys. Great idea.
Fun fact, that's why SpongeBob is set at Bikini Bottom.
Oh. So the name is a
And
reference to that.
Yes. It's also why the article of clothing is called a bikini. For some reason. I don't know the connection there, but I know there is a connection there. Anyway. Enterprise after the war, the most decorated US warship of all time, was scrapped. I mean, to be fair, it was not in great shape. But it wasn't in bad shape. It was in one piece. There was not a hole in the bottom. I mean, it was very well used, and probably about a third of the ship was patchwork or repairs, because the ship got beat to shit. But
I mean, if it's a 3-1, of course the ship's gonna get like absolutely docked out.
I'm gonna be honest. I'm pretty sure the odds were worse than 3-1.
But we're doing the hypothetically 3-1 just to make it like concise.
There was a point in time where Enterprise was the only functional U.S. aircraft carrier in the Pacific Ocean.
Oh.
And the crew's response was basically hang up a plaque in the hangar that said Enterprise against the world.
Hell yeah.
And I would like to point out, Enterprise won. And Enterprise gained the nickname the Gray Ghost. Because the Japanese said they sank it like 4 times. And Enterprise just kept getting back saying, I lived, bitch.
I was sent this from my father last night. I lived, bitch.
Basically, if you want to sum up Enterprise's career in World War II, it's shipmaster outnumbers 3-1. It is an even fight, and I lived, bitch.
It is an even fight. But didn't you die? I did. But then I lived.
Also, I'd like to point out "but I lived, bitch." It was generally delivered to the Japanese via dive bomber.
Of course. The Japanese in World War II were not the brightest.
To be fair to the Japanese, at the start of World War II, the Japanese carrier arm was the single most elite naval fighting force anywhere in the world.
Yeah.
The problem was the Japanese fully acknowledged this. They could not win a protracted war with the United States. That's just not something you did. The Japanese head of the Navy estimated that if they did not win in the first 6 months, they would be doomed.
And they were doomed.
Fun fact: Fun fact: the Battle of Midway took place almost exactly 6 months into the war.
And well, we know what happened.
Yes. The Japanese.
And now we have anime.
Yes. The thing is, all you need to understand about just how screwed anyone fighting America was in World War II was the Essex class of aircraft carriers that the U.S. built during World War II and make up most of the aircraft carriers preserved today is the single most produced class of capital ship in world history by nearly triple. The U.S. Navy built more ships of the Essex class than the Axis powers built capital ships combined.
You know something that I
during
realized?
the war.
Like, if you look at the war, like, statistically wise, I mean, America's motto for the war was, like, numbers or equality.
No, that's the Soviet Union.
Also America, because America could mass produce things like the Sherman, for example. And you just said, yeah, I mean, I get what you mean, because, you know, the T-46? Is it T-46 the thing that I'm thinking about?
T-34.
T-34, exactly. T-34, A-76, and A-85?
This is the 76 and the 85 for the two versions.
I am thinking the right caliber of gun. Like, I always thought when I was a kid, and until recent years, I thought the Sherman would have been, like, the most built tank in the war, because, as I said, Americans just, like, mass-produced it. Like,
yes.
In the time you could build, the Germans could build, I don't know, a Tiger, the Americans could build, like, 4 Shermans. But the speed that the Russians built T-34s was actually just staggering. Didn't they build, like, 12,000 T-34s by the end of the war?
Yeah, I think it was more than that. The thing is, Jimmy, is if I could sum up how World War II was won, it was won via 3 things: Soviet blood, American steel, and British stubbornness. That was the main 3 things. The thing you have to keep in mind about the T-34 is nearly 50% of wartime T-34s were built in a single factory.
Oh, damn.
Now, there are 2 ways that could be done. Either one, it was the biggest factory the world had ever seen, or this factory had absolutely no quality control.
Oh, of course, there was the second one, no quality control.
Yeah, it was the second. The thing about the T-34 is, especially from that factory, is they simplified the fuck out of that tank. T-34s were known to leave the factories missing pieces.
Ah, yes.
Things like a turret basket, so when the turret turned, the crew in the turret didn't have to manually walk around to stay in the correct spot.
Yeah.
Things like protective covers for the sights. Mirrors for the periscopes.
Brilliant.
Hull machine guns. Chairs for the crew. Storage bins. One of the fuel tanks.
Oh, that's a great idea.
There are reports of some T-34s that didn't have sights altogether.
Oh, my God.
Granted, that's more the city the factory's in is actively being attacked. Just go.
Yeah.
The other thing about the T-34 is all the ones that like Russia still has for like parades and stuff. Yeah. Those are not wartime T-34s. They're post-war productions, which had higher build quality.
Of course.
The other thing the T-34 suffered from is the T-34. One of the things that you did to armor plate is you heat treated it to make it harder.
Mm-hmm.
The Soviets overdid it, which meant while their armor plate was
something like that.
Yeah, so the armor plate the Soviets had was very, very hard, which sounds like it'd be good.
But cracks though. I think but it can crack.
Yeah. The thing is, first of all, Soviet weld quality was shit. So if the tank got shot, the welds just broke.
Uh-huh.
The other thing is the armor plate was so hard it was very, very brittle. Which
Yeah,
means
that's what
there
I'm
are
thinking.
pictures you can find of like T-34s that have been hit, and entire chunks of armor are just gone. They've just been basically you've just gored the tank. The other thing is even if the armor isn't penetrated so hard,
Mm-hmm.
Soviet T-34s spalled horribly, which means the outside of the plate got hit, and bits of the inside of the armor plate just go flying all around the
Yeah.
inside of the tank. The Germans couldn't produce as many tanks because while Germany had a pretty strong industrial base, it was not as strong. And especially late war, they really focused on the Tiger, which
Yeah.
was an industrial black hole. But to be fair, the Tiger was a pretty decent tank.
Yeah. It
All
had
things
pretty good
considered.
firepower and decent. The problem I think with the Tiger.
The gun,
Also gotta put.
the Tiger's single strongest feature was none of the things that people talk about. The thing that made the Tiger good is when the Tiger was introduced, it was the only tank that had an entire internal radio array. It had everything was clearly labeled. It was very, very easy to use. It was a very easy tank to operate. The other thing is it was also a very, very easy tank to drive. The fact was if you could drive a car in Germany, you could probably drive a Tiger tank. It was very, very easy to drive. It is also weird. It has a steering wheel. Yeah, that's like the exact picture I was thinking of for the T-34.
Yeah, I was like, okay, let me look up a
gored
picture
by
of a Bro T-34. And I'm like, okay, this one.
Yeah.
Alright, back to the Roomba.
The thing with the Tiger is, yeah, the gun was good at long range. Didn't fight it. The thing with the Tiger is, the fact is, if a Tiger showed up, the fact was anything the Allies had could deal with one. It's not like it was invincible like the History Channel thinks it was. It was not.
Yeah.
Every time in Western Europe a German Tiger came across an American Sherman, the Tiger lost.
Because the gun was not good at
Granted,
short range.
Well, also, the fact is the Tiger's armor wasn't actually that good.
Yikes.
The fact is, if the most iconic visual feature of the Tiger probably is that it is a box.
Yeah.
The fact is the front plate of the Sherman was like 1/3 of an inch thinner. However, the front plate of the Sherman is also angled at like 45 degrees.
Yeah.
So functionally, it has just as thick a front plate. The Tiger's main advantage is it had very good side armor for the time.
Hmm.
Which, yeah, okay. Still put basically any AT shell through it, but the Tiger was good because it was very easy to operate. And to be fair, while the Tiger gets a lot of shit for reliability, the Tiger was a pretty reliable machine. The problem is the Tiger was a maintenance hog and required a lot of spare parts. And the other problem Germany had is they did not build spare parts, like at all.
Brilliant.
So the other thing is Tigers often found themselves not having time to go in for maintenance, the maintenance they required. Like it's the same reason you like don't see swing wing variable geometry aircraft anymore, is they are maintenance hogs. You know, like the F-14, the wings have two configurations where they swing back and forth between out wide and swept back.
No, I didn't. I'm not really a plane guy.
And there are planes like that did that. They aren't used very much anymore because those things are maintenance hogs.
Okay.
It's vehicles like that are good ways to have your maintenance team on suicide watch. They are a pain in the ass to maintain.
Okay. Something that I've...
But the Sherman, on the top of the Sherman compared to like the T-34 or the German stuff, is the Sherman had a very high build quality and was being built by the single most powerful industrial base in the world. The Sherman tank, also, the Americans specifically designed the Sherman in mind that it would be operating on the far side of an ocean.
Yeah.
meaning anything that went wrong with it basically had to be able to be fixed in the field.
Which makes sense.
Yeah. The fact is, the Sherman wasn't just reliable, it was also very easy to maintain. And it was objectively a very good tank. Because the Americans spent like 5 years testing the Sherman before they put it into service. The Sherman was not a perfect vehicle. The Sherman did have
barely
its
any.
downsides. No, there is a few. The Sherman's biggest downside probably was a trade-off. The Sherman's tracks were too thin.
Which means...
If the terrain was too muddy, it would sink and get stuck.
Okay.
It got stuck relatively easily.
But what's the trade-off?
I mean, the trade-off was the width of the Sherman was very specifically limited. Meaning, an M4 Sherman is no wider than your average car.
Oh, so that means that you can just run through a normal street.
It can run along a normal street fairly easily. It can go across normal logistic bridges, the temporary bridges the lodge you guys had. It could fit on a train car very easily. It was very easy to move around. It was very easy to transport.
But that made it very easy to get stuck in mud. Okay, that makes sense.
It got stuck in mud easier. However, the Sherman was very easy to actually move around, which, given the fact that Sherman needs to be moved across an entire ocean, was very useful.
That makes sense.
The other trade-off this had is the Sherman's side armor was particularly dreadful. However, the thing is, the side armor of a tank being bad isn't actually a big deal.
Because everything would be, like, angled.
The very first thing, basically, any tank commander learns is front towards enemy.
Yeah.
Because the thing is, Jimmy, in a modern tank, the side armor is terrible. That's just a fact. Because front towards enemy.
Yeah.
The front armor is the most important armor of a tank. That's just a fact.
Yeah.
The other advantages the Sherman had, another downside of the Sherman is particularly early Shermans had a propensity to have their ammo cook off really easily. Though this was found to be more a fault of where the ammo was put. So they did two things with this. One, they introduced a new way to store the ammo that made it less prone to cook off, and if it did slower. The other thing is they moved the ammo all down to the bottom of the hull, where it was much less likely to be hit in the first place and go off. But the Sherman did have a lot of other advantages, some of which you wouldn't think of. The Sherman's gun was okay. It was
an okay gun. It's a medium tank. It's not supposed to have the greatest gun in the world.
It wasn't bad. It wasn't good. Well, it was. I'd say it was slightly above average, especially when
it was serviceable.
And then they made the upgunned version of the Sherman, which the main reason, by the way, the myth of the Sherman not being able to deal with the Tigers like a thing, is because on D-Day the Americans just didn't bring the Shermans with the bigger guns. The American tankers just decided not to, because they didn't want to. They didn't. The 75 works fine. We don't need the one with the 76. Which, on that note, only going up 1mm in caliber doesn't sound like it's much of an improvement, does it? You're going from a 75mm gun to a 76mm gun.
That's 1mm.
What the hell does that do, right? In reality, the reason that was done is so you didn't put the 76mm ammo in the 75 guns. Because if you ever look at them, you'll note that the 75mm Sherman has a really stubby-looking gun. It's really short.
Yeah.
Look at it. The 76mm Sherman's gun was like twice as long.
Yeah, I've seen it in World Tanks.
Yeah. That's the whole reason. It was not that the gun's actually a larger bore. It's that it's a longer, higher velocity gun. That's why it was a better gun.
Hmm.
The yeah, but the one of the single best features of the Sherman though was crew survivability.
Ah.
Statistically speaking, if a Sherman was knocked out in battle, everyone was getting out of the tank. Like over half the time, or about half the time, every single man in the Sherman's crew would survive if they got knocked out.
Which is good.
Statistically. The fact is, every single hatch on the M4 Sherman was spring loaded, so if you have to get out, you basically flick the hatch and it just opens. And you just climb out. Later model Shermans had a hatch for every single member of the crew, I'm pretty sure. Or at least one for nearly every member of the crew, maybe like 4 hatches for 5 guys. The Sherman survivability was very good. It was very easy to get out of. The Americans, all American Sherman crew losses, including people who died outside of the vehicle, accounts for like 1 person killed for every tank knocked out.
Damn.
That's including deaths outside of the vehicle.
Hmm.
For context, the data we have for the T-34, statistically every time one of those tanks got knocked out,
Most of the
at
crew was
least
dead.
1 person died. At least 1 person died every single time.
Wasn't it also, at least with the T-34 76, really easy to just like shoot the turret off? Hold on,
No.
I know. No, wait, hold on. No, I have an encyclopedia for this, and I'm pretty sure it says something about that.
No, that's the modern Soviet tanks that the turrets are known to pop off. That's due to ammo stuff.
I mean like by shooting at it. Hold on, no. I'm finding this. It's in Spanish, but I know what I'm talking about. Where is
the other thing that's interesting though with the Sherman is did we just get a sub?
Thanks for it. No, it's a follow. Thanks for a follow, Logic.
That's follow.
I heard the Among Us sound.
The other thing that's kind of interesting is the data. We have data for crew survivability. Statistically, the British lost significantly more Sherman crewmen than the Americans. The British generally lost nearly 1 person for every Sherman that was knocked out. Like, they lost like a single guy every Sherman.
Yeah.
And you might be wondering, why is that?
Less experience with the tank?
No. Uniforms.
Huh?
American tankers, in their tanks, wore helmets. British tankers wore berets. And the vast majority of fatalities of tankers was due to head injury.
That makes sense. British
So
people.
quite literally, it's literally they didn't wear their helmets. So remind people, if you're advised to wear a helmet while doing something, wear your helmet.
Wear your damn helmets when you're on a bike, goddammit.
Yeah. When you're on a bike, when you're on a construction site, there's a reason OSHA rules exist.
So I found it. I found the thing that I was talking about, the T-34-76A, and it's like, it's in Spanish. I'm gonna try to translate it, and it says the bottom part of the shield of the cannon from the side of the turret was known as a target because when you got shot,
I know exactly
it concentrated into one area and made the turret fly off. That's what I'm talking about.
Yes.
It was really easy to shoot the turret off.
The term in English is a shot trap.
Yeah.
Where it's because of the shape of the gun mantlet is the official term for it. If you aimed there, it was very easy to get the shell basically to go right between the bottom of the turret front and the top of the hull.
Yep.
And basically just hit the turret right. But you physically cannot armor.
And it would make the turret go whee!
It's less to make the turret go wee, it would just basically make it really easy to get the shell inside the tank.
Huh.
Yeah. That was the downside of that mantlet. The T-34 though, otherwise was a pretty well armored tank. Though the T-34's most distinctive feature is it had sloped armor on all sides.
Yeah, it was very slow. There was,
Which
I mean, I have seen one.
yes, the reason most other countries didn't do that, especially on the sides, is if you
Yes.
slope the sides of the tank, that means the top of the tank is smaller. I mean, you can't fit as big a turret on it.
Uh-huh. Which makes sense.
Yeah. The T-34, while it does get a whole lot of shit, the actual design of the T-34 was pretty good. And all things considered, given the war the Soviets found themselves in, it was probably the best design and philosophy that they could have for a tank. I would still not want to have driven one into battle.
Because... Oh, hey.
Yeah.
Make it cat.
Because it was pretty much a death trap. The other thing, though, that Russian
What
tanks...
is this
and
M3 like a death
generally-
trap?
The M3 what?
M3 Lee.
No, the M3 Lee was not a death trap. The M3 Lee... The M3 Lee, the M3 Lee is certainly one of the tanks of all time.
It's a weird one.
It is weird because it was basically designed in like 5 minutes. Because the M3 Lee, the Americans went to the British like, here, we have a tank for you. And the British like, we don't want this thing. The Americans like, look, we can mass produce like 2 tanks right now. This or the M2.
And the M2 is the light
Even
tank.
the M2 was a medium tank from the 1920s.
Oh, M2 medium. No, sorry.
Yeah, the M2 medium tank. The M2 medium tank was a rolling pillbox. It had like 11 machine guns. It was woefully out of date. The British, except the M3 Lee, was the only thing the Americans could mass produce that wasn't completely terrible. But on the topic of the Soviet tanks, though, you mentioned World tanks. What's the just universal downside of Soviet tanks, no matter what tier you're at?
Gosh, it's been a long time since I played World of Tanks. HP? No.
No, gun depression.
Oh right, you can't aim the gun down. Like easily.
Soviet and Russian tanks have very bad gun depression. You cannot aim very far down.
Yeah. Okay.
There's a universal.
It's...
However, there's a reason for that. Russia designed its tanks primarily to fight
on flatlands.
On the very flat terrain of the Russian steppe, where having good gun depression isn't an issue, so having a shorter turret, thus a smaller target, is preferred.
It makes sense.
The Western nations generally have, particularly in the Cold War, have pretty good gun depression. Because not only are they intending to be fighting more varied terrain, they're also generally, the philosophy was, if the Cold War happens, the Soviet Union is going to come charging across the border, and we're going to be sitting in defensive positions, usually on the far side of a hill where we need better gun depression to aim down at the enemy.
Yeah, that makes
our
sense.
hull is floating up slightly, so we have to point the gun down further to hit the target. We're using cover. Because yes, you can use cover in a tank. It's called going hull down.
Going what?
Hull down. Where you
hold on.
basically you hide the hull of the tank.
So it's gone flying. We've already gone 2 hours into the podcast.
Yes.
So I feel we should be wrapping it up because I do want to try and make this.
Should we wrap it up or do we want to aim for like an about 2 hour podcast?
Yeah, I do want to
how
make
long
it
the
around
Roomba's
a
battery is?
2 hour podcast.
Alright.
Approximately. I mean, we can finish talking about this, but you know, we may end up having a train of thought going.
If we're gonna do tanks, let's quickly wrap up with a couple countries who are not known for very good tanks in World War II. Italy and Japan.
Yeah. Yeah. No,
and they're actually known for being bad for fairly similar reasons, but they are different. The main one is both of them had pretty shit industry.
Yeah.
The Italians just didn't have the industry to really make many tanks that were good. And that basically summed up why Italian tanks weren't very good. Is their industry was bad.
Yeah.
That and in the interwar period, Italy got very committed in the tankette concept, which turned out to not work out very well.
Which is the tiny tank with the
Uh,
tiny machine gun.
Yeah, it's a very small vehicle. There were some successful tankettes. The Panzer 1 and 2 were quite
Wait,
successful in...
the Panzer II is a tankette? I'd have imagined it was a normal tank.
I'd argue it's a tankette. I would argue it is, in most of its versions. Because its main armament, officially, especially in the early versions, was still its machine gun, and it had a cannon. It was
Yeah.
a 20mm autocannon.
Ah,
It was basically a heavy tankette, okay?
okay. Makes sense.
It was... There was a version of it, I think, that got like a 50mm gun, but that was like the biggest gun it ever got, without being converted into other things, but...
The Panzer II got
I'd
converted into a
argue the
lot of things.
Yeah, the Germans made a lot of things on their existing hulls.
Which, I mean, it's kind of
Anyway.
philosophy that that happened in the 80s with American car industry with the K cars. Which is basically, we have an oil crisis. We need to do something about it. Let's just build one basis of a car and then make different cars from it.
You know what's kind of ironic about the oil crisis in the 80s, though?
Yeah.
You know who was the world's largest producer of oil in the 1940s?
America.
Yes. Like the fact is, someone like ran some numbers and stuff. The Soviet Union's like aviation, just airplane fuel the Soviets used. A third of it was American. A third of it was Soviet aviation fuel enriched with American octane additives. A final third of it was made using American machines given to the Soviet Union by Lendix.
Oh my god. The thing with American cars, at least in the 70s and 80s, they were gigantic. Yeah,
They still are.
Yeah, but like, think of like European and Japanese cars compared to American cars of the time. Like you
American
can see,
cars. Yes.
they were like double
Yes,
the
I know what
size,
you mean.
maybe even triple the size. They were like this gigantic boat of a car that had a massive petrol guzzling V8 or V10 in it, and it's just like, why? Well, why? And then the craziest time is like, oh my god, what are we going to do? No toy. And even then, when the K car happened, like, I watched a documentary about the Piper, which is like the thing that changed a little bit of things. But before then, it was like the K car, which is like this front wheel drive box with wheels with a tiny, an inline 4 cylinder, and it just was really bad, but it was, for the time it was what it was needed.
Yeah. If we can wrap up with tanks,
Yeah,
and
let's
then
wrap up tanks
call it
and
probably
wrap up the stream.
time. The Japanese get a lot of shit for having really shit tanks. However, that's kind of disingenuous. to Japan.
Disingenuous.
To be fair, the two main Japanese tank designs that they had were very good tank designs
Oh, really?
from the 1920s.
Ah, that's the problem. Their technology was outdated.
No, they were from the 1930s. They were from the early 1930s, and they were very good tank designs for the early 1930s. Especially given that their primary opponent at that time, that they were planning for, was China.
In China,
a country-
really,
Yeah, a country that did not have tanks, or very much anti-tank weaponry to speak of. And the Japanese at first had very good tanks for them, but then they changed them, and they did very poorly, and the Japanese just stopped tank development for like 10 years.
Yeah.
And then 1939 happened, and the Japanese were like, dang, tanks are actually useful, we should start developing them. And at that point it was too late. The other thing Japan had is they had a choice. They could either use their limited steel reserves to build tanks, or to build boats.
And they decided to build boats because they're an island, which makes sense.
And they decided mainly to build boats to fight the Americans, because they needed lots of boats. The Americans built 300 Fletcher-class destroyers alone, okay? I'm pretty sure that number is accurate. I might be slightly overestimated. The
A lot of
Americans
boats.
built more... I'm pretty sure there were more Fletcher class destroyers built than the Japanese had warships. Period. Okay.
Damn.
The Japanese tanks though did in combat do fairly well, especially against the Marines, which were mostly light infantry, because that's how the Marines were. The other thing the Japanese had as an advantage, their tanks were very, very light, which meant on the very soft sands of the small islands they were fighting
rather
on,
fast.
they were very nimble.
Yeah.
They were very fast and very nimble and didn't get bogged down. The Americans mainly deployed light tanks to the Pacific if they deployed full tanks, because it was more practical.
M3s?
However, M3 Lees did see some service in the Pacific.
No, I'm not
their
talking about
drawbacks
M3
weren't
Lees.
as-
I'm thinking. I know there's an
M3 Stewarts.
Hey, thank you.
Yeah, the M3 Stewart. That's a lot of use. However, there were also some Shermans deployed to some of the bigger battles of the Pacific on the islands.
I mean, which makes sense. You need sometimes a bigger gun.
Sometimes you need the bigger tank. Now,
Yeah.
are you familiar with how the History Channel depicts the Tiger tank in Europe?
Yeah.
That the Shermans need to get around the sides and rear to destroy them. You know that myth?
That was the same for the Japanese people talking about the Sherman?
That's how the Sherman actually was in against the Japanese tanks, okay? That's how it actually worked. The Japanese tanks could not get through the front armor of a Sherman. Meanwhile,
Definitely music when talking about war machines. That's the way how to spend a Sunday. Hell yeah! I have for the background music. Oh, sorry.
Meanwhile, Jimmy, some of the Japanese light tanks that made up the most of their force, there were portions of their armor where the 50 cal on top of the Sherman could punch through it.
Excuse me, what?
There were portions of the armor of some of the Japanese tanks where the 50 caliber machine gun could go through it.
Oh. That's not a lot.
No. Though, to be fair, a lot of tanks in the 1920s, 1930s were not sufficiently armored against 50 cals, especially on the sides. Especially if the 50 cal was loaded with armor-piercing rounds. There is a reason that the 50 cal is kept around as an anti-material.
Because it goes through materials.
Light vehicles and and fun fact, Jimbo, you are made of material.
Oi! Don't call me Jimbo.
I wasn't actually. I didn't mean like. I meant more like the you're going to the Shadow Realm, Jimbo. Yeah.
It's nice to see that I have 5 spectators watching the stream. 4 spectators. It's nice.
Yes, we're here for the Roomba.
We're here for the pods. We're here to talk.
Next week we can talk about something different than tanks. We can talk about either boats or we can talk about.
We've been talking about boats, planes, and tanks for this entire hour.
We didn't really talk about planes. We can talk about planes next week.
I'm not really into planes. It's like the piece of warfare that I'm the least interested on. I gotta be honest with the chief.
One thing I do want to briefly mention before I end. Did you see that? I think I briefly mentioned it while you weren't here. Did you see that the Ukrainian government put out a cinematic trailer for their upcoming counteroffensive?
Nope.
No, I think they did it yesterday. Is they put out a cinematic trailer for counteroffensive?
I mean, to be fair, their president was a comedian.
True. Honestly, the meme war that's been going on while this thing's been going on has almost been as big as the actual war.
Darius just posting on the chat. When do the hot takes about food come? I don't know. I really think I have like.
Oh, we want a hot take about food.
All right.
Well, I can't really hot take about food, but here is something that like a lot of people don't really realize. The United States has given a metric buttload, a metric shitload of aid to Ukraine. You know what the single large and arguably most important thing the U.S. has given to Ukraine is?
Food.
Unironically, it is American MREs, American military rations.
Aren't like American MREs actually kind of tasty? Like, you know,
They
considering an MRE.
Yeah, considering what they are quite good, and they have been used to supply the Ukrainian civilian population with food and the Ukrainian military with food. For context, someone did some really rough back of the napkin math, assuming. Yeah, they did a whole bunch of math and basically determined that lowballing it, so low estimation,
Yeah.
just Ukrainian frontline troops, with feeding them with American MREs, is $1 million a day.
Jesus. That's a lot of money.
Yeah. So the other thing about the MREs is the American ones, not just are they fairly good for American ones, the other thing you have to keep in mind is the Russian ones are also particularly shit.
Yeah, I've heard that. I've heard the Russian MREs aren't really good.
Not just because the food themselves is bad, but also because American MREs, you just basically add water and it warms up.
Yeah.
So the Russian ones, slip of the tongue, I almost said Soviet, I'll get back to that, you actually have to like sit down and actually like properly like cook them. They're not MREs, they're just rations.
Yeah, I remember, I think it was Markiplier that they made a video about MREs? About like American, Korean, and Russian MREs?
The last thing I should mention is, you'll note I had a slip of a tongue where I referred to them as Soviet MREs.
Yeah. They were also really
some
bad.
of the no, Jimmy, some of the pictures we've seen of like the Russian rations that the Russian soldiers have been issued, some of them have expiration dates before some of these soldiers were born.
Bruh. Are you kidding? Oh my god. No wonder.
Jimmy, this is Russia we're talking about. When earlier this week there was a group of anti-Putin Russian partisans who did an incursion into Russia from Ukraine. Okay?
Yeah.
They advanced like farther into Russia in like 3 hours than Russia has moved the front line in the past 3 months.
Sheesh.
In some of the defenses they encountered was, yes, there's these things called the Dragon's Teeth. Are you familiar with the Dragon's Teeth?
No. That sounds
So
like
what it
incendiary
is-
rounds or something.
No. The Dragon's Teeth is a concrete anti-tank barricade. It's basically a whole bunch of wedges, concrete wedges that you just basically line up.
Oh, okay. I know what you're talking about because I think it was in World of Tanks in one of the maps.
I think that it is on a couple World of Tanks maps. So they encountered some of these along their way, and they literally just pushed them out of the way.
Ah, yes.
How do you mess up the deployment of Dragon's Teeth? It is literally a concrete block that you bury in the ground a little bit.
No, they didn't bury it hard enough, I guess.
Yeah, no, they just didn't. They didn't.
Oh my god.
It is. Hold on. Let me. I have a photo that the insurgents shared. Where is it?
Honestly, I was not expecting to talk about war. I'm gonna be honest with you, Chief. But I guess we are in the Roomba of thought, so...
The Roomba of thought, and we have me.
Yeah.
Where's the picture? Hold on. I have to scroll a little bit. Here
I swear we're not only going to talk about wars, we're going to talk about other
Well, we're
other
not.
subjects
We're gonna
on
try
other-
not to.
on
At least in the
other
future.
streams, but I guess it's just how it
Yeah.
rolled.
I just shared it. That's a picture that was taken of the Dragon's Teeth. They literally pushed out of the way.
Hold on, it's on the server, okay, yeah.
Literally.
You're just standing on the ground. Hold on. I'm gonna save
Yeah,
this.
they
image.
literally just pushed them aside.
Give me a
also-
moment, I'm gonna
Also, there
put the image on the
there's
screen.
one other relevant image to that Russian partisan incursion that I want to share. However, the other thing that I found hilarious about it is Ukraine's official response to this happening was near verbatim, near word for word, exactly what Russia said when the Donbass separatists started in 2014.
Which is?
Nearly exactly the same denial. I can't quote the whole thing off the top of my head, but it's basically oh no, it's not us. All that equipment that you could just buy that at like any auction. It's the people standing up for themselves. Blah 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 blah. Nearly verbatim. It was hilarious.
All right, there's the image.
Also,
I put the image straight on the screen.
and there's a second image, Jimmy. I'd like you to put up.
Okay.
It is a map. It is a map at one point of the incursion path that was taken by these Russian anti-state.
Okay, send it and I'll post it on the.
It was this path. This is what they did.
Oh my god.
Yes, Darius, because all of this you have insane energy costs. You're welcome. Thank you, Putin.
I'll post it. Give me a minute.
Yeah, tell me when you put it up, because this is just the hilarity of what happened.
I have
Also,
put it
the
up
border
now.
checkpoint that the
It is on stream.
prove Russian defenses are non-existent, steal some light armored vehicles, send the Russians into panic, spread chaos, draw penis on map.
Hell yeah.
The other thing that was hilarious is that the border checkpoint that they went through, the Polish started memeing it on Google Maps. They started posting Google Maps reviews for the checkpoint and started just really shit posting. It was glorious.
War never ends, but the memes. The memes also never end. All right, I think this is a good point to stop it for today.
With the Russians invading Russia, no Darius, if you really want the meme, there was a battle, a tank battle that was fought like several months ago. That was nearly exactly identical to a battle fought in World War II. It's like, so the Russians literally fought the same battle twice and lost.
Again.
Yeah. Well, no, they won the first one.
Oh.
But they won the first time and lost again. But anyway, let's wrap this up, because we meant to wrap up like half an hour ago.
Yeah, we were going to wrap up half an hour ago, but when we're having fun, we're having fun.
We'll probably at least spend some time talking about this next week, because probably over the course of next week, Ukraine's gonna do more funny shit.
I mean, I'm going to raid my man. I'm gonna send the raid now. Please do not leave. Please do not leave. This man's a good man. He does cool fighting game content. We're gonna raid my man, Shot the Ninja.
The man, the myth, the legend.
Yeah. I think it's like German? I think it's Dutch. From that area. But yeah, we're gonna end the Room of Thoughts for today. Thank you everyone for watching the first episode. I'll probably update this to the YouTube bots, because I had that channel.
It just started playing an ad for me.
Yeah, it happens.
You're actively rating. Play an ad.
Hell yeah! I mean, we haven't put.
No, it's an ad 1 of 4. Why is it 1 of 4?
Auto ads.
God.
I haven't pushed the button yet. So as we're going to say, we're going to raid Octo, and next week we're going to be around the same time, like 6:10 p.m. for my time, like 9 a.m. for me. Meep, put yourself an alarm for like 8:30, 8:45 a.m. For this. And we'll talk about other things, because this is the Room of Thought. We go anywhere, everywhere without turning.
Hopefully, let's try. I think our ultimate goal will have at least 1 week where we don't talk about military or the military vehicles at all.
I mean, probably next week. We'll see. It just happens.
We shall make an attempt.
We'll make an attempt.
We'll spend the entire time talking about the interstate highway system or something dumb.
The moment when I just got there, ads dropped. Oh, this is this is funny. Anyway. See you all next time. Ta-ta! Hold on, give me a moment. Also,
Next
we
time
made it to
on
100
Balls.
followers. Woo!
Hog.
Alright, so we have now rated Octo. And now we can just finish the stream.